All right, guys, flying solo on this one. Welcome to another episode of the HawksZone Rundown. So we're finishing off our segment today. It's one day out from the NFL draft, and we're going to finish off with our top fits for running back, linebacker, and of course, quarterbacks. So make sure, guys, go down, hit the subscribe button, click that notification so you never miss an episode when they come out. And also, guys, don't forget we're over on fieldgoals.com. All of our podcasts and articles will be up there along with all the other great writers and everything over at Field Goals there. It's a great opportunity for us, and we're really enjoying our time there. So make sure you guys go over there and give that some support. As well, guys, the membership program. It's down below. It'll be in the description. Join the membership program. It gets you early access to some of our shows that'll come out. We've had, a couple of these draft fit ones come out. We had Emery Hunt last week. And also it'll notify you early and give you maybe some access to some stuff we're going to do coming down the pipe here with live shows, with live guests that we'll have on that are different than the normal guys you see all the time that come on our show. But with that being said, after this, we'll dive right into these last fits for the Seattle Seahawks.
So y'all can sit here and ask me all the questions y'all want to.
Don't you ever talk about
Man, let's go. It's go time, baby.
I'm just about that action, boss.
You ready to go get it. You just like to do it.
That's what it is.
Defense trying to do that. Pass is caught back in. Can't chase it. What a catch! Jackson Smith and Are you kidding me? Baldwin. Oh my goodness, he caught it.
This is the HawksZone Rundown with your hosts Ryan and Bryce.
All right, guys, welcome back. So we're going to start this off with our top running back fits for the Seattle Seahawks in this year's 2025 NFL draft. So I've got a couple of guys in mind for myself that I really have studied, I think they're going to be great guys that if Seattle takes them at some point throughout this class. So starting this group off, number one for me is Damian Martinez, running back out of Miami. So Martinez, the one thing I like about him, he's a one-cut, decisive runner. He's, had 1,400 yards. He averaged 5 yards a carry at Miami last year. That makes him ideal for what Clint Kubiak wants to do in this wide zone scheme. He's got an ability to break tackles, which is really good. He's strong, and he also can contribute as a catcher out of the backfield. He had 25 catches for 200 yards. So again, he's 6 foot 230. I believe he came in at the NFL Combine. He might have been a little bit over that, maybe a little under. But again, he's a guy that can pound the rock, and he's also got some explosiveness to him, which is ideal for this wide zone scheme. I think he's going to be a great fit if Seattle takes him at some point in this draft. I see him more as a late day 2 guy. Again, this running back group is super deep this year, which is great. He's a guy you can get probably in between round 3 and round 5. He's a guy you're not have to spend a lot on because there's other guys that I will list here that I think are going to go higher than him, but are still fits for the Seattle Seahawks. So speaking of a guy I think that'll go above Damian Martinez, that's Quinshawn Judkins out of Ohio State. So we saw him and Travion Henderson and what they did for Ohio State this last season and getting them to the national championship. Both were 1,000-yard rushers. But the thing for me is Judkins' speed. He ran a 4.48 40. He had over 1,200 yards. His lateral quickness, though, is what's the game changer. He can cut and just jump cut and get going super quickly. Really opens him up for this wide zone scheme. His receiving skills are a little bit less as impressive. He only had 15 catches for 120 yards. So he's going to be more of your true running back. And this is where, again, if you bring him into this room, he's a guy that I think, again, you bring him in, he's going to play well in the system. He's going to add some quality there. He might be a guy that, pushes a Kenny McIntosh off the roster because he does have a more physical set. I think he complements, Charbonnet and Ken Walker well. But I think if you were to move on from Ken Walker, he's a guy that you could potentially look at as being the lead back going forward in Seattle. So again, I see him as maybe a second round, third round prospect. He's not one of the top echelon backs, but he's definitely a guy I think I have graded higher than Damian Martinez. So he's number 2 on this list for me. Number 3 on this list for me is Caleb Johnson. I've loved Caleb Johnson's game. It's been really impressive to watch what he did at Iowa with no passing game. I know me and Rob Staten have talked about it on previous shows. They run a wide zone scheme there at Iowa. They really like it. For me, with Caleb Johnson, though, is he averaged almost 6 yards a carry with teams knowing they needed to run the football because they weren't going to throw it very well. He racked up 1,400 yards He's got a good burst. He's limited. Again, this is another back that limited in the receiving skill game. He only had 10 catches for 80 yards. He's more of a situational role kind of guy. This is a guy I think that you bring in. He's going to be your power back. He's a little bit quicker, I would say, than Zach Charbonnet. So again, if you're moving off either a Ken Walker or a Zach Charbonnet within the next 2 years, the backs I've listed above in the top three here in Damian Martinez, Quinshon Judkins, and Caleb Johnson are guys that can come in and fill that role that you're going to move on from. They're going to be good backs to have that as your fit. So that's where I look at it with Caleb Johnson here. Third on my list, I think he's a really good running back that Seattle should definitely be keeping an eye on. I have him going somewhere between rounds 2 and round 4. Again, deep running back class is going to push some of this talent down where I think Seattle can eventually get one of these guys maybe in that mid-round pick area. So number 4 for me is Donovan Edwards out of Michigan. And the reason Donovan Edwards is on this list for me is versatility. He is as good as a receiver as some of the receivers in this class working out of the slot. And so when I look at him, he had 30 catches for 300 yards in 2024. He's a bit of a change of pace back. He's a guy you can bring in as a third down back. He's going to affect the passing game more. He can run the outside zone. He's a little bit of a slighter frame, right? He's only 5'11", 205. But this is where I think you could use him as a versatility chess piece. I think he's a guy you're going to be able to get later on in rounds 5 and so on down to 7. I don't see him, you watch the mock drafts. He's not really a high-graded back coming out. He had his one really good year working with Blake Corum when they won the national championship at Michigan. He's not going to be a lead back kind of guy that's going to be able to come in and take over the running back room. He's a guy that's going to come in and be a really good complementary piece. It's going to maybe add more to it as a third back than, say, Kenny Mack, who I love. But Edwards' receiving capability is far beyond Kenny McIntosh's, which is why I think he could potentially be in play for Seattle and why he comes in at number 4 on my list. Number 5, another guy that I think has really good versatility, especially as a receiving back, is Woody Marks out of USC. So 55 catches, 450 yards in 2024. He then added 800 yards on the ground with a 4.5 yards per carry. His one thing for him, though, is he is a really, really, really good pass blocker. And that's one thing I think with you're looking at that guy that's going to come in and complement Charbonnet and K9 is you want a guy that can really stand up in pass protection. And that's one thing Woody Marks does really well. He's a guy that, can check out, run screens well. He can catch it out of the backfield, but he is really good at picking up, linebackers on delayed blitzes and so on as a pass protecting back. So that's where I think, again, a guy that you're going to get in rounds 5 to 7, Woody Marks could be a guy that you look at later on. And that's why he's number 5 on my list. My honorable mention for this, as we've done throughout this series, we always have that honorable mention, someone that just didn't kind of make the cut. And that's Brashard Smith out of SMU. So again, 4.4 guy, 1,000 yards. He's got some receiving skills that make him intriguing. A smaller frame guy. So we're talking about a guy that's even smaller than Donovan Edwards. He's 5'10", 195. So again, this is a guy that I think you're looking at potentially bringing in. He could be a guy that adds a little juice, maybe in the return game, and that's something I didn't mention with Donovan Edwards. He can help out in the return game. These 3 guys at the bottom here are more guys you're looking for a certain role on your offense rather than being guys that you can count on down in and down out, which the 3 top guys in Martinez, Judkins, and Caleb Johnson are guys you're looking for to be more of majority stakeholders in your backfield. So this is the running back group. I'll throw up the graphic for you guys so you can have a look and just make sure in case you were questioning any of the guys that I had up here. And this is that running back room. Running back top fits. I shouldn't say running back room, but the running back top fits I picked for the Seattle Seahawks. Martinez, Judkins, Johnson, Edwards, Marks, and Smith as your honorable mention. So now, guys, with that being said, let's move on to the defensive side of the ball, and let's take a look at these off-ball linebackers. So these are the guys I think that are your top fits as off-the-ball linebackers in Seattle that Seattle could look at. I think it's an area of need that I don't think is being talked enough and not a lot for Seattle, especially with depth behind Knight and Ernest Jones. So these are the guys that I've got that I think, again, these are fits. They're not the top prospects necessarily. Sometimes they are, but more or less guys I think that are going to fit in Mike McDonald's system for what he wants as off-ball linebackers. And number 1 on this list, Jack Kaiser from Notre Dame. So Jack Kaiser's coverage skills are really good. He's a sure tackler, 90 tackles, 3 INTs in 2024. He could be a guy that, again, starts out special teams, backup linebacker role, but I think is a guy that you could push to get in 3 linebacker sets if Seattle needed him to. He really could play alongside Jones and Tyrese Knight, and his special teams experience. He had 200 snaps. That really adds some value. We got to look at it. Josh Ross and Drake Thomas are the 2 guys left on this roster behind Jones and Knight, and obviously Seattle will add some players there. But I think Jack Kaiser, he was a captain. He's just an all-around great leader. He's the type of guy that you could bring into this building and I think is an upgrade over Drake Thomas. I think he's going to be anywhere between round 2 and round 4 type of linebacker that you could take. I think some teams are going to value him higher because of his leadership capabilities. And again, he's a really good tackling linebacker. As an off-ball linebacker, that's what you're really looking for. And not necessarily a great blitzer, but a guy that definitely knows his assignment, can get to the spots he needs to in coverage, and be an accountable piece of this defense. Number 2 for me, Barrett Carter out of Clemson. So his athleticism is something that really stands out for me with Carter. 80 tackles, 4 pass breakups. He's more of a coverage savvy linebacker, in my opinion, as an off-ball linebacker. His versatility to play weak side or inside would really work well. Again, if Knight or Jones went down, he's a guy that can step in and fill those voids on either side. That is what gives him a little bit more of an upside for me over some of the other guys. I think he could be an intriguing prospect for Seattle. I've got him as a round 3, round 2 kind of player. So again, another guy that gives you depth, but also gives you potential as an upside starter. Number 3 for me is a guy that's been a draft favorite of mine for a while, is Carson Schlesinger out of UCLA. So he's got sideline to sideline range, had 105 tackles, 4 TFLs in 2025. He's got some physicality to him, even for being a little bit on the smaller side weight-wise. He's a strong run stopper. His improving in his coverage skills, though, and that's why I have him below the other 2. I think the other 2 players are better in coverage. And one thing we noticed last year with Seattle's defense, with Ernest Jones and Tyrese Knight, they both were really upgrades in coverage over Tyrell Dotson and Jerome Baker, which is why the switch was made halfway through the season to those 2 linebackers. That's where I think Schlesinger's game needs improvement, is in his coverage skills. He only had 2 pass breakups. Again, a guy that can contribute on special teams, 105 snaps. He'd be more of a rotational role linebacker with, special teams. Again, he's going to complement the linebackers we already have that are our starters. But again, there's areas of his game that need to be improvement. And really, he's only had the 1 full year as a starting, off-ball linebacker. So again, bit of a learning curve, jumping right in the NFL. But again, you hear the things about him in the locker room from his coaches, what type of player he is, what type of leader he is, what type of guy he is. Those are all things I think bode well if Seattle were to take him. Number 4 for me, Cody Simon out of Ohio State. So Simon was a team captain. Again, reliable tackler. You're starting to see a trend here, I'm sure, in this fits for the linebackers. They're all really good tacklers. They all have high numbers in tackles, making them on their own. He is a more run-stopping linebacker. His zone coverage ability is okay. Again, he's like Schlesinger, which is why he's down the list. It's not great. It's not to the same level as a Barrett Carter or Jack Kaiser. I've got him as a guy that can come in, contribute immediately on special teams, and then potentially start getting more involved in the defense as he goes through his seasons and gets more comfortable with it. He's, again, a guy that in sub-package can play inside and outside, so he gives you that versatility there. So that's why I got Cody Simon at number 4 on this list for linebacker fits. Number 5 is someone that wasn't initially on my radar, but someone that's kind of come into it, and that's Moden Jr. out of Georgia. He's a little bit more on the undersized side, but a Georgia linebacker is a Georgia linebacker, and he flies around. He finds the ball. He makes some really good plays. I really am impressed with him. I've been there for a while. He's 4'6", in his 40, 75 tackles. His biggest thing, again, injury history, which is why I think he's going to fall down this draft board, and his coverage. Again, coverage is a big thing for Mike Macdonald with the linebackers. It's something that, when he was in Baltimore and he had Patrick Queen and he had, and I'm blanking on it now, Roquan Smith finally caught up with me there. Both those guys were really good coverage linebackers for him, and that's something Ernest Jones brought last year. He was a much better coverage linebacker than what we had. So that's where I think, when you look at these guys that are lower on my list here and fits, trend starts to develop with their coverage abilities and what it matches up on tape, and you can see it. But it's not an area they can't get better at. But that's why I think they fall down the list a little bit compared to some of the guys I had at the top 2 spots. My honorable mention for this group is Aaron Casey out of Indiana. And he's a guy I think you can get in the real late rounds. He might even be a UDFA, but 90 tackles. His physicality aligns for the downhill linebacker style that Mike McDonald also likes in his, off-ball linebackers on the inside. Again, he is very limited in his coverage skills, which is going to restrict him to being an early down linebacker if he does play. But again, his special teams capabilities are huge. He was really good on Indiana's special teams group. So I think, again, a guy you could take a late round, low risk depth piece you bring into camp. If he beats out Josh Ross or one of these guys, great. But you're not expecting him to play any significant defensive snaps starting. So that being said, that's the linebacker group for me that I think are some of the best fits. Again, guys, these are players that I view that fit Seattle's scheme, that they may be able to get throughout the draft process. It's not the top prospects. I know there's some other linebackers on there that people are probably hammering, saying, oh, why didn't you talk about this person? This is more of looking at guys that are going to fit in this system and where Seattle's looking potentially to take these guys. So here's the graphic on the board. As you can see it, linebacker fits: Jack Kaiser, Barrett Carter, Carson Swetzinger, Cody Simon, Samel Moden Jr., and Aaron Casey as the honorable mention for this group. So guys, just a quick reminder, if you're enjoying this content, you're really liking it, make sure you click that subscription button down there to subscribe. Check the notifications. And guys, the other big thing, please be active in our comments. We love interacting with you guys. It's something that gives me and Ryan, who's not on this show, a lot of joy, is to be able to, connect with you guys, have conversations on prospects, different things going on with the Seahawks. So make sure, to join in those comment sections below, but make sure that they're respectful, guys. That's the big part of this. Make sure they're respectful comments. Don't come in there. Don't be an asshat about it. Just honestly have respectful comments. It's something that we appreciate. Our guests appreciate it because they like to engage too when they see the comments come through on these videos. So guys, can't stress that enough. But again, make sure field goals, check us out over there. All of our stuff's over there. And after that, we're going to get right into the quarterbacks of this draft fits segment. All right, guys, last part of this. So I stretched this out a little bit of a break in there. We're going into quarterbacks, my wheelhouse, the position I have the most love for, position I played. I really do a deep dive on the quarterbacks and the guys that I think are the best fits. And that for me is something that when I look at quarterbacks, again, I don't know if Seattle's going to take one this year. You listen to John Schneider's comments on our show last week. It doesn't sound like quarterbacks high up on their priority list. Obviously, they've gone and got, Sam Darnold, Drew Lock. They've got 4 guys that they mentioned. Jaron Hall was another guy that they mentioned. It was interesting, though, because, some people had brought up Plumlee as a guy in that competition potentially, even though they moved into receiver last year. By John's comments, he's not a quarterback. He mentioned the 4. But that didn't stop me from looking at guys I think are the best fits for Seattle in this draft class, guys that I think would make, great additions to it and potentially could be starters in the long term if they were developed properly. So with that being said, let's get into the top QB fits for the Seattle Seahawks. So number 1 on this list for me, and that is Will Howard. So I've been a guy that, has gone back and forth on quarterbacks, and, I've watched Gruden's QB classes. I've watched a bunch of different things, but Will Howard for me is the guy after I watched, the John Gruden show and watched all of his tape again, and then watched just and listened to the comments that people were saying, whether it was Ryan Day or his coach at Kansas State or even the players around him. Will Howard is a leader. And the one thing I took away when I watched live him and John Gruden on his show was how Will Howard came across as a mature leader. He understood what his role is as the quarterback. He understood how to get and connect with his teammates. It's not easy going from a program where you've been somewhere for an amount of years, you've established yourself, and then going to a top tier program, not saying Kansas, State isn't one, but to go then to Ohio State, come in for a guy that took that team to a, double-digit win season and then take them to the national championship. The expectation that that is the goal. That is, nothing outside of that is acceptable really at Ohio State. So to watch Will Howard come in and do that was really impressive. And so then when I look at Will Howard as, a fit for the Seattle Seahawks, Will Howard's going to be a guy that would come in. He's going to give you all the same physical intangibles, John Schneider really likes. He's got the big arm. He's got the size. He's got the athletic ability. He's also got the football IQ and the ability to understand his role. And I think he's a guy that's would come in and he would push, whether it's Drew Lock or Sam Darnold, and push that QB room to be better, to, strive to take reps away from guys. And so for me, when I look at Will Howard, I think he's going to be a guy that's going to go in the second round. I don't think he's going to go in the first round, but I think he's going to go in that second round. And I don't think he falls out of the second round. Some team is going to fall in love with that kid. He's charismatic. He's got a lot of things that you like about him. I think Will Howard, would be an ideal fit in Seattle as a guy that you could bring in and he could sit for a couple seasons behind Sam Darnold, and then you eventually hand the keys over to him. And I think you're going to be in good hands as a franchise with Will Howard taking the snaps under center for the Seattle Seahawks. Number 2 on this list is another guy that I fell in love with through this process. You guys have probably heard me talk about him a bunch. Some of you might even guess in the comments before you hear it, but that is Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. Kyle McCord has a presence about him. The kid's a gunslinger. He loves to throw the ball down the football field. And you look at his, stats that he broke throughout the college season in the ACC. The dude loves to push the ball and he can rip it. And I mean, he might be the best when it comes to accuracy on the deep ball of a lot of these quarterbacks in this class. He threw 4,000 yards, 32 touchdowns in 2024. The thing for me that I think McCord did really good going from Ohio State to Syracuse was he didn't act like he was above everybody. Came in, he worked. You listen to his coaching staff there. He came in and just took over leadership-wise, all those kind of qualities you're looking for in a quarterback. Kyle McCord's got him. And the knock, a lot of people say he's always not that athletic. Kyle McCord is athletic. Kyle McCord just didn't need to be a running threat as much in the Syracuse offense because he did more of his damage throwing the ball down the field. And so when I look at Kyle McCord, again, a guy I think would fit this Clint Kubiak system really well. It emphasizes some of his ability to even make throws on the run. So again, Kyle McCord's number 2 on this list for me. Number 3 on this list is somebody that I know is very, very bipolar by the Seahawks, not bipolar, but polarizing, I should say, for the Seahawks community, and that's Quinn Ewers. And even for the, the draft community for that matter. Quinn Ewers, if he had came out last year, maybe he's a guy that's in the conversation going the first round potentially because he was doing so well at Texas. This year, really up and down season, got hurt, dealt with some pretty significant injuries in the oblique tear and the high ankle sprain he was dealing with throughout the season. The thing with Quinn Ewers is he has the arm talent. We're talking about a guy that threw for almost 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns. He fits the rhythm passing game that Kubiak will like. He can do the bootlegs. He can do those type of things. The one thing for me with Quinn Ewers and why he's below Kyle McCord and Will Howard is I just don't see that I can fit it in there. And actually, when I go to fit it into that ball is getting in there. He doesn't seem to have an extra gauge on his arm, if I'm being honest here. And that's the one thing for me where I think it's going to be interesting to see how teams evaluate him in this process. Where he fits on that NFL draft board come tomorrow or throughout this NFL draft week. And I think Quinn Ewers is going to be a round 3 guy. Some team may take him in round 2, but I think it'll be the back end of round 2. But I think he's going to be a round 3, round 4 guy that someone's going to take him and just take a shot and see like, hey, maybe it's a team like the Rams, which, Sean McVay looks and goes, hey, he does a lot of the things I need my quarterback to do. He can learn from Matthew Stafford for a season, and then we can turn the keys over to him because he is working with Mike McCarthy. So the reason I say the Seahawks are a potential reason he could be a fit, he fits the scheme. John Schneider's about connections, and Quinn Ewers is working with Mike McCarthy, who we know John Schneider holds in great esteem and has great respect for. So I think that's what also adds to Quinn Ewers being on this list. And I should have mentioned this prior. Will Howard's QB coach is Jake Heaps. Again, a connection for John Schneider with one of these quarterbacks in this class. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of all shakes out. Number 4 for me is going to be really interesting for some people. He's someone I got higher on throughout this process. Someone I looked at initially and was higher on than most. But it seems to have caught up. We had Emory Hunt on the other day, and he brought up his name as well as a quarterback, and that's Brady Cook out of Missouri. Brady Cook is really interesting to me because I now, after having Emory on, no, I'm not the only one that thought this. I thought Brady Cook had the best throwing at the combine out of any of the quarterbacks. Any of them had the best throwing session. He's a dual threat, 3,000 yards passing, 500 rushing, tough as nails. The dude just gets up. He does not just stay down. He fits the play action accuracy of the Kubiak scheme. You know, he's more of a developmental guy, though. You're not looking at Brady Cook as a guy that could come in and start year 1 or even year 2. He's a guy that maybe year 3, hey, you know what? Do we extend Sam Darnold or do we turn the keys over to Brady? Like, do we see what we've got there? So I think Brady Cook could be a guy that you're taking anywhere between rounds, 5 and 7, and you're taking a flyer on him to see if he comes in. He could come in and beat out, maybe a Drew Lock or a Sam Howell and be the backup quarterback this season. But he's not a guy I see pushing Sam Darnold till maybe year 3 of his NFL career. Number 5 for me, I should say, is Seth Hennigan out of Memphis. So Seth Hennigan is a guy that I look at, he quick release. He's, put up a bunch of numbers at Memphis, which ironically, his numbers, I tell people to go look at this, but his numbers and Paxton Lynch's numbers are almost identical, and Lynch played one less season. So if Lynch had played his, extra year, I think there's a good chance he potentially could have had almost the same numbers. The thing interesting with Seth Hennigan is he just has a very quiet demeanor to me, and this is where I look at the leadership quality thing, and I go, can he command a room? Can he come in and guys are going to believe that things are going to get done with him? And that's where it's one of the things when I check boxes, does this guy check that box for me? But I think his experience in the spread offense could help with the quick passing game of Kubiak's system, but I don't know how good he's going to play from under center. And this is why I think he is a late round guy, 5 to 7 UDFA type. I think that, you take a swing at him. Maybe you hit gold like Brock Purdy with, San Francisco. But when I look at Seattle, there's certain areas of his game that match up, but there's not a lot of it. And that's why he's number 5 on my list. Now, my honorable mention on this list is a Canadian, and that's Curtis Rourke out of Indiana. And so I've gone back and forth on Curtis Rourke because I look at what he did at Ohio when he was at that university playing for the Bobcats. And then I was like, okay, he's gone to Indiana. How much did he really elevate that program? And the more I watched it, the more I went back and studied the tape, the more Curtis Rourke impressed me and what he was able to do there. And then when you find out the ACL injury, now it makes me wonder if he had been 100% healthy, does Indiana really lose to Notre Dame in that playoff game? Does he not win that game and get Indiana into the next round of the playoff? So, you talk about a guy with quick accuracy. He, to me, his pro comp is Kirk Cousins, which we've seen can work in the system. 3,800 yards, 30 touchdowns in 2024, moving into the Big Ten with Indiana. He's got really good pocket presence. He's not as, mobile as some of the other quarterbacks. He's more of I would say, a lesser version of a Kyle McCord, but I still think there's stuff in his game that, fits this offense. He, makes good decisions. He's accurate, student of the game. Again, a guy that fits into the scheme of what they want to do here in Seattle. So, realistically, I would say reason why he's the honorable mention, the injury. How is he going to come? I know he posted a video last week of him doing 7-step drops, working without a brace, doing a bunch of those things, but it's still an iffy thing for me. And that's why Seth Hennigan's sitting at 5 and Curtis Rourke is at, the honorable mention spot. However, if Curtis Rourke is healthy, that could very well flip. And, it could end up being something come draft day where you see Curtis Rourke's name getting called and Seth Hennigan's not because teams fall in love with him, or maybe even Seattle does. So with that being said, guys, that is the QB fits for this grouping. And I'll put them up on the screen here for you. So we go Will Howard, Kyle McCord, Quinn Ewers, Brady Cook, Seth Hennigan, and the honorable mention is Curtis Rourke. And guys, that wraps up our fits segments of this offseason for the NFL draft. You can go back, find them. They'll be on our YouTube. They'll be on our Spotify, Apple Podcast, everywhere like that. But guys, it's been a lot of fun. I can't wait for tomorrow in the NFL draft. It's going to be exciting to see what Seattle does, and it's going to be exciting to see how this round 1 starts. I think there's maybe 3 guys that we're looking at that we are almost all certain are going to go in the top 3, which is Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Cam Ward. Outside of that, it could be really interesting to see how this draft falls. How many teams trade up? If there are any teams that trade back, it might be a harder thing to do this year. But I'm really excited to see what the Seahawks do with this draft. It's it's kind of finally feeling like a full reset has now occurred. We reset the defense last year. Now they've started to reset this offense. They got to address some needs on that offense and on this team. But I've got a good feeling that, this group of, John Schneider and Mike McDonald, they've got a plan. They're going to go in. They're going to execute it to the best of what they can do. And the one thing we got to remember with this is they're not in complete control. Like, there's players we're going to want that they're not going to be able to get because other teams see them and take them and snipe them. And it's just not going to fall their way with certain guys. But you know what? They've put in a lot of work in this, and we got to trust the fact they know what they're doing. With that being said, though, guys, make sure tomorrow, jump onto our live show. Have that notification button clicked. We're going live with our draft party with Dan Vians of Seahawks Forever. Michael Thompson will be on. There might be a few other guests. Mookie Alexander might be joining us. So make sure you guys are dialed into that, crossover live draft party. It's going to be a lot of fun to do. We're super excited for it. And then, guys, day 2, Michael will be back. It'll be me and Ryan throughout the day going through round 2 and what we think Seattle's going to do with all the picks they'll have. They'll have, that big chunk of 4 picks in that top 100 area there that we're going to look in rounds 2 and stuff. It's exciting. Can't wait to see what they do. So, yeah, guys, make sure to check out all that stuff coming up here in the next couple days, next 48 hours here. And then we'll be back post round 3 with a recap of what Seattle did in the draft. So make sure you're looking out for that. And that'll either be on Sunday night or Monday. So make sure you guys are ready and queued up for that. But with that being said, go Hawks.